Okay, we're recording. This is Sandra.
Yeah.
And her son has been having homeopathic treatment for autism, and she was willing to come on and talk about her treatment. So first of all, we'll think about what life was like before. You can mention your son's name if you like or not. It's up to you. So you can just call him C, or you can, whatever you feel comfortable with. So if you want to tell us what things were like for you before he came for treatment with me, what kind of treatment he'd done and where he was at.
Okay. My son, we've actually been doing homeopathy all along, since 2010, and but most of that was primarily classical homeopathy. We also do and we did actually, alongside with the treatment we were receiving from Ali, biomedical treatment as well. But mostly the biomedical was a bit of a hit and miss. The pattern I've seen in my son was we actually see more improvement with homeopathy. And before the treatment with Sally, my son had issues, especially in terms of sleep. Actually, it was a bit erratic for his sleep, because he would quite commonly have early morning waking issues. And then usually he would find it quite hard to fall back asleep, and then when that happens, the rest of the day is sort of written off because he's just not quite himself from being tired and all sorts of things. And also another issue that we've struggled with for a long time was he was very prone to having things like nasal congestions. And again, when that happens, it sounds really bizarre, but when his nasal congestion is bad, that whole day is written off as well. I guess it's a bit like, when you have the flu, and you're just all clogged up inside and he just can't function that day. And we've seen improvement through Sally's treatment in terms of those two issues. I think there were rough patches during the course of the treatment when we saw early morning waking alongside with also nasal congestion, which it's not uncommon, especially when my son is undergoing
detoxes as well.
Yes. And another quite telling symptom when he's going through detox is he would have mouth ulcers. And again, they hurt like crazy alongside with the nasal congestions that really almost renders him unfunctional. The biggest improvement I saw through Sally's treatment was the sleep issue resolved. And also the other thing was his gut was a lot better. And his gut was healing, through our supplements and biomedical and through the different homeopathy treatment in the past. But it sort of it really settled through Sally's treatment as well, because I no longer see tummy bloating as an issue for him, although he still needs some help through regular intake of magnesium to keep him regular. But having said that, he's actually been on magnesium for the longest period of time. And in the past, when we were giving the magnesium, but we were still seeing bloating from time to time. But we've seen that resolved since being, receiving Sally's treatment. In terms of negatives, I would say, because we've done so much homeopathy, we started back in 2010. One of my biggest fear when I approached Sally was, how would the negatives be like? Because we've gone through hell and back. There were results in our previous homeopathy experience, but what really was quite frightening for us was actually the negatives.
Yeah.
In the end, we came through the the end of the tunnel, and we saw improvements, but the process was just quite scary at times. So the one question which I spoke to Sally about first was, how would the detox be like? Because I really don't want huge negatives. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
I know
what the positives, but you don't want to go through the suffering in between.
Yeah. And I can manage. I totally would accept and understand and expect there would be some negatives. It's just part of the process, but it depends on how severe it is. And I certainly want to go back to that space where I was before. Partly also because my son is a lot older now. If we have to go through that, it may not be very manageable because of his age as well. And the negatives, I think, from Sally's treatment compared to all our previous homeopathy treatment was almost negligible, I would say. I mean, there would be some. There would be some. It's a bit like
early morning waking indicates an issue with his liver, that his liver struggles. So detoxing is going to be hard. Yeah.
Another detox symptom for him would be he would be like really off, unengaging, difficult to focus. We saw that as well. But again, it was manageable. And what I like about Sally was she's willing to listen. Because as soon as there was one remedy, I think it was the polylabor meds detox, that it was quite rough, and it dragged on for quite a bit because we had to I was finding the detox a bit difficult to manage, and I think we had to sort of slow things down a little bit, prepare
on liver support, and just draw it out longer.
Yeah, basically, rather than what some of our previous homeopaths would tell me, like, push it through.
It's like giving birth. Horrible.
Yeah, I've tried that as well. Not necessarily work, but suffer from PTSD from that, actually. But what you did was you just slow it down, let the body just adjust a bit, and then we go back again.
I think Sandy, that the big aggravations indicate that the liver's not functioning well enough, or elimination's not happening fast enough. So at that point, we need to slow it down so that toxins can make their exit. Just that his body is not exiting them fast enough, so we just need to slow it down and add in supports to help him, Epsom salts baths. I use those aggravation symptoms during detox to tell us how far we need to go. And when I see them slow right down, and particularly with this early morning waking, add in some liver support. So I can hear my voice is making this back. So I'm going to shut up and let you talk.
Okay. Yeah. And but because you're very good in terms of case management as well. You're really on top of it, and apart from being responsive, people can reply to emails, but you have to actually do something. And I think you did that quite well. Unlike I would say most of my previous homeopaths, actually. I mean, most of them, their response usually in those situations was just push it through. This is the first time I actually have a homeopath who's willing to sort of slow things down a little bit for us, and on top of it, give us extra stuff to give the organ support as well.
I think it's really important.
Yeah, and I do.
Fun suffer. I don't want to see children suffer. If we can do it without suffering, we should.
I think not only the children suffer, but
the parents.
Because I've been through a lot, so I'm actually not, I'm not put off by negatives, but some parents, when they see a negative or regression, and they just scream and thought, my God, how am I going to get him back on track again? And they stop it there and then, and you never hear from them.
That's the main problem, which is another reason why it's so important to tailor it to the child, make it manageable. You want to keep people in the process, because the gains are in the process. And if they walk away because the process is difficult, that child won't have the gains. And my main aim is that the child has the gains. So it's got to be manageable for the child and manageable for the parents. So that
Yes.
child doesn't miss out on the gains they can get from homeopathy.
Right. Yeah. So on the negatives, I would say in our case, it was really negligible, very minor. And the gains, as I mentioned, we got sleep better. The gut is in better shape.
More focus, more attention.
Attention was a bit better, but I would have liked to have more improvement in that area. And in terms of what I would have liked to see more in terms of progress is like, you know, the biggest hurdle, language, which we didn't see very much.
No, not yet. Yeah.
Not yet. But I know that is that's like the holy grail, basically. That's the toughest part, actually.
Particularly when you get older as well, because we're working with him at quite a late stage, that, you know, we've got through the point where the brain's been doing all it's not so plastic at this point, so we can still see gains, but they tend to come more slowly. Got a much greater number of layers that have built up over time because he's been alive longer and he's been struggling with his autism longer. So although you can see the gains, they don't come as quickly as they do when you see a child who's diagnosed and has homeopathy at 3 or 4 or 2 even. You know, we're going to see the gains much more quickly because the brain is still so much more plastic at that point. So yeah, it's little on the later side. He's in the 13 range. I can't remember off the top.
13 now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So I think we can get there. We just have to keep working to get there.
Yeah. I mean, one of my biggest fear about in my son's case was about puberty, because when we started you, he was about 11/12, I think. So he was approaching puberty, and I've read a lot of stories of kids boys especially, when they go through puberty. It's just, I mean, even neurotypical kids, they go a bit wonky, difficult.
In the 13th year, from looking at I've had 3 go through that. The 13th year is woof.
Our kids who aren't, well, my son, at least, who's unable to express himself. So, you know, it's very hard to gauge how he's feeling, or what difficulties or what problems, or how he's feeling physically even. But we didn't seem to have much problem. You know, I mean, yes, he's going through puberty, but we didn't experience much difficulty. Or, I mean, my son was never the aggressive type anyway to start off with.
But it indicates the hormonal system is operating quite well, at least now. Maybe after treatment it's begun to do so, or he doesn't have too much issue on the hormonal side.
Yes, absolutely. So and of course, I have to mention we had that chicken pox.
Yes, that was quite impressive. That's actually a good sign that he could do that, and he did it quite well as well, didn't he?
Give a bit of history for those who's listening to this. My son had the chicken pox vaccine when he was. We actually did check his titers not so long ago, and actually they were quite low. But beginning of this year, he had a chicken pox outbreak. I don't know whether it's, you know, through detoxing what he already had.
It could be. Had he been in contact? Had he been in contact with chicken pox? Did you know any cases?
I think that's a possibility, because there were 2 other kids in his school,
quite possible,
that had at the same time as my son. But now whether I wasn't sure whether, you know, he picked it up somebody else, or he spread it to somebody else. I don't know. But after he seemingly recovered from the chicken pox, he regressed a little bit. Actually, I was quite worried. And at that point, I approached Sally to do a homeopathic clearing of the chickenpox virus, just to clear it, because I was quite worried about that regression. And we did it for, I think, about a month, post potency, and that after that we saw some nice improvements. Actually, he actually leaped forward. So that was quite useful.
I think it's really good for the immune system to be challenged by something like chickenpox, and the fact that he could get chickenpox tells us that his immune system's getting a lot stronger, because he must be in one of the further higher levels, about level 6. We measure between 1 and 12, as you'll know from working with me. And so he must be in level 6, level 5 to 6 to get chickenpox. So we know we've seen a rise in his level of health. And then he didn't entirely clear the symptoms of it. So we needed to give him a little help to move the varicella out. And then usually after children have been sick with fevers or chickenpox or acute infectious diseases like that, we can see gains, just as he experienced.
Right. So that was really helpful, because we saw some really, I think he actually made a lot of gains after that chickenpox outbreak, and then after we did the clearing homeopathically with the virus, sort of we saw, wow, he's suddenly just leaped a big step. So I think overall, the process is actually quite, very manageable for us.
Good.
Good. Which was what is met expectations. It met my expectations, because that was the biggest issue I talked to you about when I first approached you. And you told me you don't like seeing negatives. You don't believe in pushing through and going over the hump before you see the end of the tunnel and all that. So
I can't switch off from them. So if I know it's happening, then my brain will be at work the whole time. So, and partly, I know some homeopaths have a really good ability to switch off, and you need that ability, because you can't carry your casework around with you the whole time. I have some 300 plus patients. I can't carry the casework around with me. But if I know that somebody is suffering, family is suffering, I'm going to remember about it all the time. It's going to be on my mind. But also I'm contacted all the time, so I'm not going to be able to forget about it anyway. And I make a good policy of making sure that I'm contactable, because the last thing I want to do is go and use antibiotics and turn the case back, because the use of antibiotics will undo some of the good work we've done, because it attacks the immune system. They're unhealthy for the immune system. So I'm trying to keep you away from allopathic medication as much as I possibly can. So I need to be reachable. So I always have an acute appointment, as you know, every day. I'll see you if you need to be. So for me, it doesn't make sense to have toxins running around the system during detox that are not being eliminated. That's not good for your child to have that situation. We need to slow it down so that those toxins are limited and eliminated. So it makes sense for everybody. It makes sense for me. It makes sense for the child. It makes sense for everyone. I can't make the sense in saying push through. I'll avoid that if possible.
Right. So that's pretty much our case, actually.
Thank you, Sandy.
Yes, it is manageable, but I mean, having said that, I don't know, because my son has done so much detox, so I can't speak for others. So if for someone who's never done homeopathy before, maybe it could be, I mean, you may see more negatives than us.
But after, I mean, I've been detoxing children for the last 3 years, and I see more people than most homeopaths see, because I see a good 20 patients a week, and I'm part-time. So, but I've been detoxing children for quite a long time, and I use a homeopathic detox therapy protocol, if you like. But there's an order in which you should detox certain substances, and in that period of seeing that many children who need detoxing, you get to understand very clearly which order you should do them in. And if you don't resolve one obstruction, and so for example, you've had steroids, or the mother and father have had steroids, and you go and initially detox vaccines, then you can see aggravation with that detox. and you have to go back and do the steroids. So I tend to, if I see steroids at all, I'll detox those first. So now I've got the experience to sort of know what to eliminate in which order, so we see fewer aggravations, more gains for detoxes. But experience helps. It's the point of specialising as a homeopath, because as you know, we're holists. We work with the whole bunch of symptoms. We work with the whole body, and so every homeopath can cope with any case that's in front of them. They just take the symptoms and give the remedies that apply. But as a specialist, you learn about detoxing, and you learn about the particular order in so many cases that you can bring your experience to those cases, understand which remedies are going to be more likely to come up. So it's a great idea, specialising, I think.
Right.
So complex, autism.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And every case is quite unique in its right, isn't it?
Yeah, and we see children that don't respond at all, and in the process I've seen a good number of children who are non-responders, as we call them, and so I have developed a number of tools to get response, to get their immune systems responding to homeopathy. And so I think if you've tried homeopathy and it hasn't worked, I have patients who tried 4 homeopaths beforehand and then came, and when I hear that they've tried homeopathy a number of times and we've had no response, what to do to get the child's body to respond. Usually we've got some methods for that, so it's always worth trying it again. Yeah.
Right.
And persevering like you have, Sandy, you see good results in the long.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, so that's pretty much our case, actually.
Brilliant.
It's just now it's a matter of sort of thinking, next steps, which was, I think we spoke about, is clearing viruses, but we need to prep his body to be ready for that.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for talking to me. I shall put this on the Effective Autism group and see what people think about it. I think it's very good to encourage people to come for homeopathy. It has no side effects, so it's a really healthy kind of therapy.
Yeah, if I could add, I mean, like I said, we saw some negatives. I mean, of course, we saw some negatives as well. But what the approach that was adopted in our case was like, as with the polylabor mats clearing, which I felt was getting a bit too rough. You slow things down. And the beauty about homeopathy is once you slow things down, you stop the remedy, give it a bit of time, and the effects will wear off.
Yeah, that's it. We don't stay with those things. Those things stay. They're just temporary. It's about the body catching up with detox. And some of those symptoms,
in my experience with our previous homeopaths, we had really crazy detox, like hives that went on for a bit too long.
Yes.
Long for my liking, but in the end, it did wear off.
Yeah, it does. It usually does.
Yeah,
but good sign. It's just hard to. It's just a little unmanageable. That's a good sign when you see skin eruptions, detoxing through the skin. But that's one of the most difficult ways to detox. And that's what I would want to stop and support the liver, that we can detox through the stools and make sure we've got no constipation. Make sure we've got some good liver support, so the child's body doesn't have to detox them through the skin. Some children are just skin detoxers. They're going to do it through the skin, whatever you do. And particularly when you see children who've had a history of eczema, we're going to have to come back through the eczema and treat the eczema. And it can be hard. It can be hard work. I have cases like that where that it's difficult, but usually they're cases with a history of eczema, and we've got to come back through suppressed eczema. It's difficult, but we find ways of managing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep it a little. We won't go too much because people have got to watch all the way to the end. So thanks. I'm really grateful for you coming today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
Pleasure. So I'll see you soon. I'm just going to turn the recording off, and then I'll have a quick chat with you.
Okay, sure.
Work out how to stop the recording now. Stop.